and welcome to everyone listening or watching. My name's Noam Unique. I'm a broadcast journalism major here at Marshall University, and today I will be interviewing the second executive behind the Magic Railroad Director's Cut, Joseph Marshall of Silbert Records. Joseph, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for taking time out of your day, even though it's very early in the morning from your side of things, to talk to me here based in Huntington, West Virginia. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
More than grateful to do this eternally. Given your role as the second executive for this director's cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and given how I would say you personally have a much better handle of things than Destination Films or any of the big studios ever did, in terms of just, what voices are being said, like what needs to go here and there. I wouldn't trust Mattel or Destination for crap. I would say you and Carty are the best people to handle this project.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
I mean it. I don't trust Mattel, especially with this new reboot, but, we'll see how that goes. Later on in the year, we still don't have a trailer for it either. So, yeah, let's get started. So, given how it's been almost a year since we got that first few trailers from you and Carty on YouTube, what drew you into this project personally?
Well, it wasn't even like what drew me in. Like, I kind of accidentally started the whole thing, and it was
started it?
Yeah, it was a complete accident. What happened was a friend of mine in Nashville, Tennessee, who worked on a number of children's programs, he sent me an email saying that some lawyers in Toronto had been in touch with him about a post-production company that I won't name, going into insolvency and bankruptcy, and they had some of his material there, and he sent it to me and says, Joseph, if you want, you can go and retrieve this, or, because he was mildly curious, but he also didn't want to deal with it. So I was like, okay, I'm curious. So I've done that. I didn't actually physically go there, but I've gone and emailed them, and I've gotten hold of the list of like tens of thousands of assets they're about to throw out that they found in storage. And I'm scrolling down really slowly looking for anything interesting, children's television related, because that's what I do. I'm a historian of kids' TV. And as I'm going down, a lot of it looks pretty crap and pretty boring, but all of a sudden I'm scrolling down and there's all this Thomas and the Magic Railroad stuff. And I'm going, hang on a minute. What the hell have I just stumbled upon? So my first port of call was to get Carty on the phone, and I had a little bit of trouble getting him on the phone because he had a bad back that night, and he was he was quite high. Like he'd done a lot of weed, so he wasn't answering the phone, and I'm sitting there going, for fuck's sake, Carty, pick the phone up. And anyway, he did, and then it wasn't till the next morning, I explained it to him, it wasn't till the next morning it clicked for him what the hell we were looking at, and he's like, holy shit. But anyway, by that point, I'd already emailed the insolvency lawyers and said, look, I want to pull this stuff out, don't throw it out, and that's what happened. Like, the long and short of it is that they signed it over, I got it out of storage, and that was only 7 days before that stuff was due to be thrown out. Like, it was due to be... Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they only contacted my friend in Nashville, like, really late, actually. It's almost like they didn't want anybody to actually retrieve stuff. They were just expecting to bulldoze through it or whatever. But I in that short time, that list found its way to me, and I've seen all this stuff and gone, that's not going in the bin, we've got to rescue this stuff. And that's what happened.
I can just picture it now, like, Carty, wake up, you're causing confusion and delay. I found the holy grail of Thomas Media, bigger than Mattel could ever conceive, and it's for you to watch. I
didn't even know, like, what it was myself straight away. I was just saying, Carty, I think I've found something, dude. I think I've hit the jackpot.
Yeah,
he
most certainly did.
I realized quite quickly it was groundbreaking.
This is the lost film. This is Mara Wilson's last film before she quit the show business industry. And and we're finally going to get the cut. We've heard rumors, theories, and just, I'd seen fan edits of, people putting together lost footage, but it was kind of crappy. It was a little,
I've seen them too.
amateurish. Yeah. But like, given how I've seen you guys put it in a very professional way, and like, oh, this is legit. That's what hooked me, and that's what got me interested. Actually hearing those voices, hearing the lost tape of, oh, you were wrong to put me in prison, and you were wrong to hide that engine. That got me instantly. I was like, this isn't fake. This is real, and we're finally getting that all these years later. And it's funny you mentioned that. For a while, I thought that when Mattel was announcing this Thomas, special in 2026, I thought it was this cut. I really thought that's like you guys were in with it, and that's on my end. I thought that's what it was for a while. Only did I not realize, this is something separate entirely. But this is just an addition to this new reboot, which we still don't know about. This is an addition of what really, in my opinion, started this whole Thomas remake thing, from him going over to Hit, CGI, all engines go, all this other stuff because of this movie. And now we're finally getting to see that, as young adults, what that would have been like. So that's simply incredible, man. You hit the jackpot with that for sure. You hit the jackpot. So how would you describe your specific responsibilities compared to the others like Carty and Zoe?
So Carty is like, he does a lot of the editing.
He does the editing.
Yeah, he's really good at that. Like, his editing stuff, his editing skills are really good. And Zoe is very good at finding people in Canada, like, because she's based in Canada, and so they often go and being in North America, go and look for these people and get them, because I think Carty said, we're going to interview a bunch of these people on camera for bonus features, so that's been a big thing. But yeah, Carty sort of edits the project. It's I wouldn't say anyone's more important than the other. We're sort of producing it together. Yeah. But with me, I have a heavy focus on the music and audio side of things. So while Carty actually cuts the audio in, I listen to it very carefully, the mix and all that, and because that's what I'm trained in that. And many of the song mixes I've created as well. So that So it's a number of things, but yeah, Carty. I think I would describe him as like a creative director for the cut. Every now and then I'll cut. We usually just look at it together and we decide, well, this is what I think, this is what you think. We rarely disagree. It's a very good partnership.
Awesome. It's awesome. And when everyone gets along that way, it just makes the process of just doing this much easier. What you said about audio, that brings me to my next question. How are you approaching the film's audio restoration, especially when working with older or incomplete sound elements?
Well, we were lucky in that the stuff that I recovered, and I'm excited to talk more about this because
absolutely
follows up. Yeah,
all ears.
So luckily we got all of the voice casts for like the 1999 version, which had Keith Scott as Diesel 10, the Australian fella. Michael Angelis as James and Percy, as well as Splatter and Dodge, and you had Patrick Breen as Henry, Toby, and Bertie. So that version's there. We're gonna be used for our assembly cut because that's the original version, the original cast. And then there's the March 2000 director's cut version, which you've heard a lot of the cast, like Joe Matheson and still Michael Angelis, still John Bellis. It's more polished. It's closer to what was released dialogue-wise, train dialogue-wise. And then there's also the Russian Diesel 10 version, which that's what I call that cut. So you got Russian Diesel 10, you've got Eddie Glenn Thomas, you've got Neil Crone Gordon, Neil Crone Russian Diesel 10, you got and James and Percy, they weren't really sure what they were doing yet. So you got all of that stuff. All the audio for those casts is there, and we've got all the stems for the movie. That was also with all the final release movie. That was all with all the stuff. So using that, you can basically build up an audio skeleton of what you want the cut to be. And also we've got the audio for the test screenings they did, which were Quite frankly, they were quite shit. But it gives you an idea of what sound design they do for, say, for example, Boomer blowing up the mountain or motorbike and that. So we can pull or take inspiration from that for doing that in all of our cuts. You know, it really is groundbreaking. I still remember. I still remember when we got the CDs in, and I wasn't able to get onto the digital audio tapes straight away. But what I was able to do was get the CDs reading in the drive, even though they're 20-something years old, and the file system was incompatible with not only just Windows but any modern computer. Anyway, I got through all that pretty quickly. I know how these discs work, and I found all the files and I couldn't load them up. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So then what I did was I put one of them in, and I've actually done it at the wrong sample rate. So all of a sudden we got Michelangelo Splatter and Dodge yelling about, you know, who's got the balloons, but it's like double speed and high pitch. And that was the first thing we ever heard, and that's when we realized we've got something. You know, it was I loaded it in incorrectly, but that's when we realized listening to it, this is something, you know? And as we went through, we found lots of weird stuff. Like, we was like, okay, that's John Bellis as Thomas. We got Michelangelis. Is that Eddie Glenn? Why is Eddie Glenn reading as Percy? That's confusing. Yeah. And, you know, the same guy who did Toby in the final cut, you know.
Home Field.
Yeah, and you realise, hang on a sec, this is a whole different version of the movie nobody's ever, like, realised even existed. So at that moment we went, what the hell do you do? You know, it's like, mind blown.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's how I was when I first watched that trailer. I actually think it was on your channel, not Carty's. I saw it on your channel, and I saw that you both posted the same video. But then I got more clips of it from the assembly cut, from the director's cut clips, which I was just moving into my dorm here when I saw those of Joe Madison's Diesel 10, Eddie Glenn's Percy, and just the trailer, and still being awestruck at what we could have had in 2000 instead of, you know, James and Percy being voiced by women, which I still didn't like. I still don't. But hearing Adrian Egan and Eddie Glenn's voice impressions, it was just fantastic. Because for a while, I just thought it was Michelangelis that was supposed to play them, not these other two actors. You know. So I'm really glad you brought that up. So, what challenges come with restoring dialogue, music, and sound effects from a film of this era?
Well, like I said, we're lucky in that there aren't too many. Like, all the file systems on those CDs were outdated, but I am very good at data recovery, so I was able to get through all that, and then I assembled basic, like, stems from all those different CDs, like, and made a full, like, length stem of the film of the final cut for Carty. And as we've been editing this together from, like, mid last year to now, he's suddenly built up this entire sound design. There really aren't, like, it's challenging only in the sense that it had to come off old formats. Like, all those CDs read perfectly fine. We are actually very lucky that we're not dealing with, yet, analog stuff. Like, this was... Yeah, we're very lucky in that I've heard of film restorations where so much stuff has gone wrong, but this one's very lucky in that, you know, and it's fans dealing with it, so we know what we're... Not to say we're not professional, but we know the content as well as, you know, the tech side of it. That's important, I feel.
Well, I would arguably say you guys act more professional than the big name studios. So, you know, give yourself some credit. No, I'm serious,
Thank
man.
you.
Like, literally, I can't even mention, like, how many times in the original I heard bits and pieces of just voice audio being messed up or whatever. And also, like I said, seeing Boomer on top of Diesel 10 and questioning who the heck is that guy. I still see him in these cuts, like when they're going into Henry's tunnel and you see Boomer just laying down on Diesel 10, and that's where fans pointed out, wait, there's a figurine on top of him. And also when they're going over that bridge and Percy's underneath, you still see a glimpse of him riding behind. And also when, and again, this is just Destination Films crap editing they were doing, like there was that scene where Boomer was still talking with Fonda's character, Burnett Stone, and just as Stacy drops off Lily, you still see them conversating, but it's like, oh, hey, he's just asking for directions. No. If that guy looks the same as the one that's riding Diesel 10, people are going to make that connection, because I did. and it's going to leave more questions and make things more complicated. So, give yourself some credit for that because, I've seen, just from the glimpses I've seen, it's shocked me on how professional it sounds and also just the filter with it too. Because it really, at least Sodoers and the blues in the sky and just from the edges, the color just really looks rich in this restoration. So I've got to give it to y'all. You've killed it. So what role does music play in shaping the emotional tone of this restored version?
Yeah, see, this is important because, of course, with a film like this where we're extending the runtime, but the score was written for a really condensed, flat version of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's no shade on Hummy Man. That guy's a legend, and his work shines through no matter what. But what that means is we have to then extend the music to fit this version, and God help us when we get to the assembly cut, because that's going to be interesting. But that's my skill. I edit music, so oftentimes, the role of his score in this is so important. Like, especially for some of these scenes we're reinstating where there's emotion and, you've got the flashback where his Burnett's wife has passed away, so you've got the flashback with that deleted song, Some Things Never Leave You. That's very important. Then you get a little bit, if you're going to, the way I look at it is, if we're going to reuse score, we've got to do it tactfully and carefully. And Carty, what I had him do was render out, I'd get him to pretty much lock a cut, say the chase scene, or Thomas going down the mountain after Boomer's blown it up, and I'd get him to send me that without any music, and then I'd do a cut straight to that. I'd play the footage and cut the music and rearrange it as flawlessly as I could. Some of those took days, to get it till I was happy. And when we eventually get hold of the music multi-track, because that is going to be something the original multi-track recordings, we'll be able to go through and not just cut up the music, but take out certain bits and remix stuff so it sounds less repetitive. Not that it does now, but there's all kinds of trickery you can do. And because, like you said, you asked me the question, what role does it have? Well, it's very important. You've got to be very tactful. But that's my job. I sort of do all the music editing.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because Carty mentioned that in our last interview, how for the chase scene specifically, you guys were able to loop that with Boomer and the final ADR for Diesel 10, Thomas, and Lady, and just how it worked out so well. And I'm just anxious thinking about it because for all this time, I've only heard Stuart Little music and Dark City. For diehards who know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know. But I'd only heard it with those tracks for a long time. So to hear the music looping, and that is just amazing. And just to be able to hear you guys got to a point where you're satisfied with it, that's so cool. So what does a typical day look like for you working on this restoration?
Well, it's good in that, I've been friends with Carty for 12 years, so we work on this sort of at our own pace and leisure. But if we're doing a day where we are full on doing this, it will mean for me staying up all night because, of course, time zones. I mean, that's kind of what I was doing now. I was actually just working with our graphic designer, Adam, who's based in the UK, and we did a design for a logo, and we've done some poster designs, which Carty has looked at as well, and he thought they were really cool. But yeah, it just means absolutely no sleep and no rest. That's how I would describe it. Yeah,
last year too.
Yeah, last year it took basically the whole second half of my year just vanished because of the movie.
Wow.
But, it's worth giving up for.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no pain, no gain. That's amazing. So how do you handle gaps in materials, whether it's missing audio, incomplete scenes, or inconsistent quality?
Carty's real good at that. He's able to get some good for the picture. He's able to get some to blend out the picture a little so it's not as jarring. But audio wise, I think we've been pretty fortunate. Some stuff where they didn't do certain scenes, it's like, well, we're not gonna, the coal hopper scene, for example, we've just chucked that in.
Yeah.
Really useful engine, but that's what they did in the original test screening, so it's almost like a little homage to that. as shit
That's cool.
as that version of the film was, in my opinion. But yeah, of course, we made an announcement saying that we're being made aware of more material which we're trying to get, and I think that saying is without spoiling anything. I think that will greatly any gaps that we might have at the moment that will greatly help. The cut we have currently, we're very happy with. Like, so if something went wrong for whatever reason, if we had to release what we've got now, I think people would like it. It's very people often look at that work print that came out a few years ago, the leaked one, and they go, well, it's all over the place, it's terrible. And to an extent they're correct. Like, it's very shoddy, but a big part of it is that there's no finished audio mix, and I think even if you have poor visuals with poor audio, it's crap. But if you have poor visuals that you've Carty's gone in and upscaled and he's color corrected and he's done all this crazy stuff that makes it look good, but it's also none of this AI garbage. A lot of movie studios do that. So he's done it all traditionally and he's done it properly, and then he's matched it to the final cut of the film, like that source. So they look pretty close. And then we've got a good audio design. So if for some reason something went wrong and we had to release that version, I think people would still be happy.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the AI crap that most studios would use and not appreciate, because, like, I'll be frank, when I first saw pictures of the merchandise leaks for this 2026 reboot, I thought it was AI for a long time. And I saw those faces, I'm like, did ChatGPT just generate images for this? Because it's using the renders from the previous CGI models. But knowing that you guys are fully doing this yourselves, actually putting the work in and not using formats and software like Seed Dance, Story.ai. I can just think of those two off the top of my head. Sunless, something like that. Either way, none of that crap's real. You guys are putting in the work, and I'm so glad you are, because nowadays, and this is just the generation we live in, I can't tell what's real and what's AI generated. Even with the newest Ted, one of the newest Ted season, where they used AI to put Bill Clinton in there, like, okay, I can see why, but it was so painfully obvious that they did that. But I'm just so glad you guys are doing that.
I remember that episode. Yeah, I remember that episode.
It's just like, okay, he's not blinking barely, and it's just the photo leak. Like, if Seth MacFarlane can put all these cameos in Family Guy or whatever, surely he could get Bill Clinton to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like, you guys are putting the work in, and I'm so grateful for that. Better than all the crap.
I think if I were to speak on as to why, it's because, well, if we realise this is something that's so important to people, and it was important to Britt, and we knew Britt. Carty knew Britt very well. I knew her not as well, but I have interacted, and we both have a very deep connection to this movie. We saw this. Carty saw this in cinemas when he was, he would have been 4 or something. I saw it in cinemas when I was 2. That's not my original poster, but I still have my original one from when I was 2 in a frame in the other room. But like, we're deeply, deeply connected to this movie, and that's why we do everything to this extent. People are probably wondering why I give up so much time for, it's not just even the Thomas fans, it's not just, another Thomas thing. It's Thomas and the fucking Magic Railroad. Like, we grew up
Exactly.
with
Thank you. This is what started the entire, I'm going to call it the TCU, the Thomas Cinematic Universe. Well, really, this is the only cinematic movie, but like, the rest that came were just specials or, direct-to-DVD ones. But like, this is what it really all started. And I'm so thankful, like, you guys are actually going to restore this thing to, not to a T, like Carty said, but combine elements of the final cut and elements of the director's cut, both yours and Britt's, together as to what she would have really wanted, and not another crappy CGI reboot that Sony were to do in like a year's time. Like, this is something we're getting years later that, like you said, is a lost asset that no one else knows about. So I'm really appreciative of that. So, you kind of answered this in a way, but like, how's it been collaborating with Carty and Zoe on a project with such a passionate fan base?
No, it's wonderful. Like, I've been in the Thomas fandom for for bloody God knows how long. I'm
Yeah.
old, like I'm 28 this year, but I've been around on the internet looking at Thomas stuff since what 2004.
Hmm.
I didn't even have the internet at home. I had to go to school or the public library and
Wow.
look at it on the. I still remember the PT Boomer scene dropping, like on 2009. Like watching
Yep.
that at the public library computers and going, "Who's that? Who's that guy on Diesel
Who are
10-3?" You know, it's
you?
like, yeah, who
Yeah.
the hell is that? And yeah, so it's been good, and it's nice to see how many people we've made happy with this. Like that's ultimately the most satisfying thing. People who have come to us and said thank you for doing this, and it makes it worth it when people are uh, appreciative and they and to see that it's actually making people happy. That and like
Hmm.
knowing that this is what Brit would have wanted, and she tried to get this done for years. And like Carty
Godspeed.
said, it's a blending of a few different ideas and. Um, but integral, to what she would have wanted. And yeah, so collaborating with Carty and Zoe, well, it's interesting. I haven't known Zoe that long, but she's
Yeah.
great, lovely person. Carty, on the other hand, I've known him for 12 years, going on 13. So working with him is easy. I know him inside and out. He probably knows what makes me tick. I know what makes him tick. So it's easy to sort
I
of
gotcha.
bounce off each other. It's good.
It's awesome. Knowing you've known Cardi for years and you've gotten to know Zoe recently, what have you learned working alongside them, coming from different creative backgrounds?
Well, I see that we all have different skills. Like Zoe's very good with the people side of things and stuff, and so the
Making
social side.
connections.
Yeah, yeah. Cardi's very good at he's just he's like a traditional filmmaker. He shoots a lot of stuff. He
Hmm.
knows all his bloody colors and grading and white balance and bloody upscaling and all this technical shit that is sometimes goes over my head, and I'm like, how the hell? Do you get that? And then I come from the thing of like the preservation, the historical, the audio stuff. I'm very, very sensitive about the audio stuff. So I think that the blending of all of those backgrounds and the other people we've got on our team, like my friend Adam, who's our graphic designer, and others as well. It's like the perfect sort of dream team.
Awesome. That's really awesome. How do you balance staying true to the original film with making adjustments that improve the viewing experience today?
That's a great question because you've got to really divorce yourself from the final cut, and that's something
Yeah.
that I've had to say to numerous people on our team. And Carty and I have gotten good at it. Like we've gotten good at saying, yeah, that version doesn't exist. Ignore that. Pretend that
Hmm.
and then you
It's the
you look at it.
Justice League. It's Justice League.
Yeah. So you look at all the source material, so those tapes we've got, the audio, and we look at that and then stuff that we notes that Britt took and other things like that. And you look at all that and you go, shit, maybe we should put this back in. Like for example, there's a great scene, and this is one of my favorites.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, there's a great scene where that was taken out straight after the assembly cut. It didn't make it any further. It's the scene where Mutt goes up to Burnett Stone's door and barks at the door until he comes out and hides in the bush, and then he and Burnett has an argument with Lily. So he's sort of the catalyst to get them to do that, and then that's how she meets Patch. But and
Wow.
also it proves that Burnett is a stubborn old man and he can't not hear the train whistle. He can hear the dog bark, so of course he can hear the train whistle. So
This is
it's
news to
basically
me.
yeah, there's this big scene that, and we found footage of Brett actually when they were shooting that, behind the scenes footage where she says this is a very important scene and all that. And so we're like, well, that and also love dogs, but that all of that
Yeah.
combined, I was like, we really want this back in. So that to me,
Wow.
like, that's one of those things where we've got visual proof of Brett saying this is such an important thing. So we had to put that back in. Plus, that's the whole reason like she met Patch, and
Yeah.
as you know, there's this whole like storyline later on where 20 years later, she married Patch and they had kids.
Yeah.
So it's really important, and it gives
Absolutely.
Burnett some depth, and it gives them a little conflict as well, which is why when Burnett walks up and they're talking and she's just jumped up in the tree and Patch has gone, you know. The reason she's over there in the first place and Patch walks up is because she's stormed off from Burnett's place, and that's why he comes up. So it gives more context
Yeah, instead of Pat just coming up like, "Hey, bet you can't climb that tree. Where'd you learn that?" It's like, "Who are you, and why are you stalking me?" I work for your granddad. But yeah, that final execution of the scene just made no sense.
Yeah, especially when they're just sitting there throwing all the grass, and like, you know why she's doing that now. You know why she's doing that now. She's angry at Granddad for being a bloody...
She's angry at Burnett. That's hilarious. But yeah, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And I just remember they put that scene right after Diesel 10 got coal covered all over him. And I was just wondering, like, why is she so frustrated? Is it because I don't know. Again, I don't know. But like you said, that gives more context to that. And I'm so happy to learn that like you guys are going to be putting that scene in, because like, yeah, that's news to me. I had never heard of that, but that really does that only gives more. Yeah,
it's such an important scene. Like it gets overlooked, but when you look at all the lore of the movie, it's like, wow.
I was just going to say, it gives more character not only to Lily and Patch, but Mutt. Mutt, even though he's just a dog, it gives him more of a central role in this. Thinking, oh, he's not just a train station pet. He's not just a stray. He has character. He has more intelligence than most people would assume. So that's amazing. Yeah. That's really great. What decisions have been the most difficult when it comes to maintaining authenticity versus quality?
Again, like sometimes early on, we both had trouble got a divorce from the final cut and pretend that's not there. For example, there's one scene where, at the start where, this is Thomas, our number one hero, and he whistles, and in the final cut he says hello. But that hello bit was not something that was added on until way later, and I think reluctantly against Britt's will. So I remember Carty did try and put that in, and I said, no, just have him whistle, and it flows so much better. And we've both been on the same page since then. Like it's no shade on Carty or anything. It's just when this was really, really early on, and we've both been on that same page going, yeah, we've got to, and ever since then, we've had very little difficulty sort of, the flow found itself. The story's there. The problem is these bloody executives butchered it.
Yeah, they screwed the test audience. Oh man, don't even get me started.
Well, I don't even blame the test audiences. I blame Destination. I reckon they used the test audience as an excuse to force a recut and a recast, because the first test screening, they've pitched up the trains' voices so they almost sound alien. And my belief, and this is a conspiracy theory, my belief is they did that because they wanted it to sound strange and weird and perhaps scare children, so then they could say, well, look, they hated it. Now we've got to get rid of these voices. Yeah, because you fucked them up, you idiots. It frustrates me. So apologies for strong language, but it frustrates me.
No, it's cool. What's funny is my first exposure years later, when I was in 7th grade, years later, to like what went wrong with this film and the test audience and studio executive drama behind it. I actually watched Jeffrey Kitsch critiques review on it, and I was used to all the language he said with like every childhood show turned to movie, they fucked it up, and it had the clip of James running in a wagon. So I'm used to it. You're not gonna offend me, honestly, but that was my first exposure. It wasn't even Nostalgia Critic, because Nostalgia Critic was just crapping on the entire thing because Tom is the fucking tank engine. But with Jeffrey, he actually provided more context as to like why it failed, and why PT Boomer was cut, and the test audience drama with that came with it. And that's where we found out about John Bellis, Neil Crone's Russian accent, Michael Angelis, James and Percy, and what happened with Britt's film, which led her to surrendering Thomas and Franz over to Ghislaine, and Mattel, Fisher Price, all these companies that have just bulldozed it into the ground. Which that's a strong word. I wouldn't say they bulldozed it, but like it wasn't what it used to be. They drastically changed it. The theme song changed. The narrative was kind of more towards babies, if I'm being honest, versus like the early episodes like Edward Gordon and Henry and Down the Mine or Ghost Train. You got Thomas and the Stinky Cheese, and calling all engines Diesel 10 was grumpy, but like all the other engines, he still wanted to be useful. Excuse me, what the actual fuck? You know, stuff like that. And then Sharon Miller, which, okay, people look at her as like, oh, this is the first time the engines got real voices. No, it's not. No, we got to go back to 2000 and 1999, and that was the real execution of it. And those god awful rhyme segments. Oh man, the only good movies I would consider decent are Hero of the Rails and Blue Mountain Mystery. Day of the Diesels, Misty Island Rescue are just total shit. I think, can we agree on that? Can we agree?
Well, for the most part, I say that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. No, I love Blue Mountain Mystery and Hero of the Rails, but Day of the Diesels, man, they were setting up Diesel 10's, like, he finally came back and they're going with the evil oppression. No, let's just vandalize the scene and play with it like it's a playground. Yeah, that annoyed me so much.
Yeah, I remember when those were all coming out. That's so long ago.
2011, 2010, yeah, right. Of course, if you want an idea for what it's like here in West Virginia, people look at us like Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand. Stereotype.
Like the hillbillies, yeah.
Exactly, they're hillbilly. That's right. We were so happy to see you. And then, them repeating sentences off of each other. That's how people look at us as West Virginians. And I don't think it's fair because there's more to us than that. So, you got stereotypes battling all of that here and there. But
well, no judgment from me. I've got friends there, so. You're all
good. Really? Okay, awesome. Yeah. That's cool. Now that we've talked John Bellis and Thomas, we're going to show everyone your trailer and your snippet of getting John Bellis back as Thomas. And I want you to know, like I said with Carty, I've watched it so many times on repeat, and I'm going to be real. When I watched it on the live stream, I shed a tear. As funny as that sounds, I shed a tear because I knew it was what Britt would have wanted, and we finally got to see John Bellis come back as the Little Blue Tank Engine because I know he was gutted after he was replaced by Eddie Glenn and just other voice actors. But hearing him and him still being able to, put that voice in and still give it his all 26 years later. 25 actually, that came out in October. 25 years later really just meant so much to me, and seeing Lily and her family just go, and she's going through the scrapbook of all the engines. I just thought that was a beautiful thing. But we're going to show everyone your trailer now.
Beep, beep. Hello, everybody. It's me, Thomas. I might sound a bit different as I've got sneeze powder down my funnel. I'm so excited for you to see the original version of Thomas and the Magic Railroad next year. It's a story about trains, folks far apart, and the magic railway that brought them together as they were meant to be. And with help from my new friend Lady, we'll show Diesel 10 and that nasty passenger that little engines can do big things. Now please excuse me, a big train is due out. But I'll see you next year and I'll save a seat for you.
Enough to make a grown man cry. Go ahead, dear. You can shed. So good, though. I mean, seriously, man. Just being able to hear that, and then hearing your mix of really useful engine, but with a classic theme, and then the new chorus singing. That was just the icing on the cake. That was the icing on the cake and the cherry on top. But I remember seeing that new footage of Diesel 10 and thinking, what is this? Is this from the Knapford segment that was cut all those years ago? We finally got to see more of that. And then just green screen footage of like Boomer actually landing on Diesel 10 and flying. Oh, that was so cool just to be able to see all of that and hear it for the very first time. But I'm so thrilled because Carty told me how he contacted John Bellis and he recorded that line. I'm just so thrilled and grateful he was able to do that and record that segment for you guys to execute. And that was beautiful, man. Honestly, that was what took me back to the early 2000s and just Thomas when I was a little kid. It was model trains and hearing them with their real voices. I mean, now that you hear it, he doesn't sound that old. And that's what people complained about. Like John Bellis, oh, he's too old to sound like Thomas. Really? Put him up against Martin Sherman or Joseph May. He sounds like he fits in with them perfectly, So I'm so glad you guys got to do that. So going back to my questions, why do you think projects like this matter in preserving not just visuals, but the full sensory experience of a film?
Because that's a great question, and I think because if there weren't people like us doing this, then what would happen to it? It'd end up in the bin, like my story of the stuff we found at 7 days, late 7 days before it was meant to go out in the bin, and it's like, well, if there weren't people like us doing this, then who would care about it? And it's like, well, somebody needs to. That's as simple as that. Somebody needs to care about it.
We don't do this now, no one will.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I get it. That's awesome. It's awesome. For you personally, what's been the most rewarding part of working on this restoration?
Oh God, that's a great question. Like so much of it, seeing like
So much.
Yeah, no, it's real. The whole thing's really satisfying. There was a point in time where I genuinely believed, and I hate to admit this, but when that work print came out, I genuinely believed, wow, the final cut was better than this thing. Like, this is a mess. Like,
Yeah.
And then when we actually got the access, the assets, and we started doing that and looking at it and going, Brit's story's here. Those bloody executives in Hollywood fucked it.
He was bullied.
It was their fault. Yeah, she was. She was absolutely. They destroyed this project, and it made her look crazy. And it was quite simply not the case. There was these American executives who knew nothing about Thomas, who knew nothing about British culture, who knew nothing about the Thomas's connection to any of this stuff. Nothing. They were the most unwhimsical, unbloody. They didn't have a single like childlike imagination bone in their body.
They see a little silly train movie where the trains talk to each other and an evil diesel wants to cause havoc. That's it. And let's throw Peter Fonda and Mara Wilson and Alec Baldwin in there just so we could get some attention. That'll be fine. That's what I feel like was going on in their heads. Let's just throw some A-list celebrities in this silly little train movie and see how it does.
Yeah, and then you realise, well, actually, no, Brit had this whole thing planned out for years. Only to see it destroyed in a matter of months. We know, we've got a timeline now. We know where, as things went down, and it's just, and as part of this project, of course, there's been like a whole historical thing, so we've discovered archival stuff, we've been keeping records, we've been doing all that, and you know we're doing a few different cuts, so we've got this main director's cut, which is, then there's this assembly version, which is currently, like, as it stands, 2 hours and 30 minutes long. So that's for the crazy, like, nut job fans like me.
2 hours and 30.
Yeah, and that's got the original voices. So you've got the Australian fella,
You shouldn't have
who's
collected
Lieutenant
Mr.
Gordon,
Conductor.
Keith Scott, and you've got Michael Angelis as Percy and James and whatnot. So that's a completely different version. And then you've got the one which has the Russian Diesel 10, because we wanted to do that, even though that's a really weird comedic version of the film. We've got all the audio, so why not make that version so everybody can see that? That's sort of the goal. And then the theatrical version that came out, we're going to go through and just restore any little mess-ups, because there were gaps between the reels, because they cut the movie 5 reels. So, but the bit where Splatter and Dodge go, they back up against the sheds, there's a little tiny gap in the audio where the reel joins, and it has bothered me for years. So we're going to fix that. Little things like that.
Conductor says you can come out now, James.
How did you see this project influencing future restoration efforts or collaborations for you?
Well, when we first started this, we weren't sure what the hell it would be. But as it stands, I think that if some guys, I think that if some guys who just love Thomas, can go and do this, it makes it sound easy. It's not easy as hell. But I think if people saw that, the general film audience, all these two guys really love Thomas the Tank Engine, and they went and restored this version of the film that, you have to go back to all this ADR and recut the entire thing and go back to the film and all that. And it's like, I think if people like that, like film critics and whatnot, regardless of whether they liked it or liked the project or not, saw that, they'd be like, well, at this point, bloody, if they can do it, we've got to do more. Maybe it'll encourage more people to do more director's cuts, or let's, people. A lot of studios are like, no, we don't want a director's cut, but the actual director or whatever is not happy with it. So maybe that would I'd hope that it would change things, but I think what I'm trying to say is if, from that perspective, some guys wanted to do a Thomas director's cut, and then these big sort of Hollywood bigwigs see that, they might go, shit, well, people want that, they'll want this,
Yeah. This is going to go back to more of the audio technical insight I had, but like, how do you maintain consistency in audio quality when different scenes come from different sources or even conditions?
That's very hard, but again, like we've got different methods for that. Sometimes the ADR doesn't match up with the tape audio, all kinds of equalizing and separation methods. It's like some of it's rough, but I think we've been able to do it quite well. A combination of my skills and Carty's skills, blend that together really nicely. And there's been times where we've had to reconstruct a few things here and there because continuity errors with however they recorded it, or we've had to go through and pick out all the good takes as well, because some of the takes are a bit rough. But I think relatively, and then the other thing is we've screened it to a few people, like Carty's shown friends and family. I've shown friends and family.
He mentioned that.
And that's actually a big, including people that like only tangentially know like what it is, or they're not hyper Thomas fans. Like I've shown it to my mum, for instance, and she still remembers taking me to see the film when I was 2. And her thing on this is that, holy crap, Peter Fonda's not all depressed anymore. Like he's not just miserable. There's a reason for it.
He's not a hermit.
No, exactly. Like there's a whole reason for that, and it's like it makes sense. And there's this great little bit we've put back in where Peter Fonda's character Burnett comes back to Sodor and he sees Mr. Conductor, and he says, and Alex's character says to him, "I'm glad you were able to find your way back, and thank you."
Yeah, I remember that.
That's so wholesome. It is so ungodly wholesome.
I remember watching that in the archive compilation and thinking, what is this? Why was this cut? They knew each other. Because I remember saying, I'm glad you were able to find your way back, but there was no relationship that was set up. But now we know that there is. Carty revealed that there was more of an emphasis on Mr. Conductor's family, and that he and Burnett have that connection. And knowing the fallout they had when Lady was, out of service and was put into, restoration, there was a fallout that happened, and that's why he was so depressed. Not just moping around like, "Oh, Lady, what are we to do?" It was so much easier when we were little kids. No, there's a reason for that. And knowing that they see Lady in working condition, fully restored, is why they said, thank you. And it was just, salute cinema.
Yeah, and there's this whole unresolved plot where he gets his hat back. He gives his hat to Lily. He takes the hat back through the Magic Railroad, gives it to Burnett, and he's just staring at it all confused, which is real funny. And there's this tiny little hat. And there's this scene that we're putting back in the post credits where he magics into the workshop and says, "Excuse me, I think you've forgotten to give me my hat back," and he takes it. And we're going to put that in as a post credits thing.
Wow, post credit scene. All right, the viewers are going to love that. Thomas has a post-credit scene. MCU status. Let's go. That's awesome.
I just realised I probably revealed that too early, but who cares?
Nah, you're good. Hey, listen. Carty revealed that there's new dialogue in the chase scene. You're fine. You're good. This'll get the fans excited. Yeah. This will get the fans excited. So this one's music and score specific, but how does the score in this version influence the pacing or emotional weight of certain scenes?
Well, we have to be, like I said, we have to be very careful with that, because it's easy if you're technically taking bits of score from the film, still the same composer, still the same film, but from scored to different bits for a different version. So then you've got to cut these together. You've got to make sure it still balances. And that just, I put that down to my experience with music and music editing and soundtracks and all that. And like I said, when we get that multi-track, that's going to be even easier, because you can then take little elements of the motif. So, for example, only the piano or only the guitar, and then make lighter or more intense versions of certain themes, and nobody would notice. They'd be like, "Well, did you guys get the whole orchestra to come back?" And you can answer the question by saying, "Maybe," and they'll never know.
Maybe.
I'm that confident
never
in
know.
my work. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's as you should be, man. As you should be. It's like, you'll never know. Um, in terms of problem solving and obstacles, what's an example of something that seemed impossible to fix at first, but ultimately worked out in the end?
Oh, good. That's a good question.
Thanks. I came prepared.
Yeah, I've got to think about that one. So just give me a minute.
Okay.
God.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
It's really. Oh, here's a good one. I like this one. Like,
Okay.
we really wanted to put the Harold scene back in with Harold,
Harold,
and we
nice.
thought that would be funny because Harold's hilarious, and
Yeah.
our way of doing that was, well, nobody recorded for Harold.
Yeah.
Thomas Angelus didn't record that but they recorded that in the 1999 session. Still Angelus's splodge, and Thomas, or John Bellis Thomas. So what we did was we lifted elements of the 99 session, and nobody would know the difference if I didn't say that, because they're two like months apart recording sessions. But we were able to restore that, even though that seemed impossible, just because that version was there. So we've got Splatter and Dodge, the Harold the Flopper Chopper scene. We've got that. But they didn't. If we didn't have the '99 version, we wouldn't be able to do it. That's
Awesome.
That's a great example.
I'm glad you kept Harold in, because even if it was just for that one scene and nothing else, we still got to see him flying by. And I always liked George Carlin's voiceover for Harold in the American dub of it. That was always my favorite. But to hear him voiced by, it's Kevin Frank, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
we found
still voiced by Kevin Frank.
An alternate take of Kevin Frank, so it's a little different, just to spice things up a bit. But it's still him.
Yeah. No, I'd love to hear that. Sorry, old troops, bit of a dust stunt. Left to stay in Glee. I've got to go. Put it by now. That's all we saw of him. But just to hear something new, anything from Harold, that's news for me. Yeah, just hearing more Kevin Frank takes, like, that rabbit take. He's not getting it. That, like, I remember seeing that in the parody, but I thought that was just for shits and giggles. I didn't think that was a long lost take of it in Cut 11. That was a fever dream in of itself. I agree with Carty on that, but that was crazy to hear Kevin Frank improvise that rabbit voiceover. I was like, I thought that was just for shits and giggles. I didn't think that was a legit thing that they used. So that's so cool to bring up. Yeah, that's amazing. In terms of like an industry perspective, like you said, the studio executives, they screwed Britt over entirely, screwed Thomas fans and Thomas himself a lot. But how does this project reflect larger trends in film restoration or fan-driven media projects?
Well, I'm hoping it would encourage people, fans like us, Carty and I, of other properties or other films to do the same. I'm hoping they would see what we've done, our efforts, and go, well, there's this thing, maybe I'll try and do that. I'd like to see similar projects in the future, even if it's not, something I'm necessarily like a big fan of or whatever. I'd just like to see similar things. Like, if we can inspire somebody, then lovely. That's our work done.
What do you think most people misunderstand about the work that goes into restoring a film like this?
I think people think it's just, you got to get rid of the dirt, you got to get rid of the scratches, and in this case especially, it's like, it's not so much damaged material, it's more they butchered it in the editing room, they cut the film 12 times, you've got to re-edit the whole thing from scratch. I think that's, for this project, people misunderstand that the whole thing has to be built from the ground up. It's not just tacking the scenes onto the end of the final cut, which long ago Britt Allcroft said in an old SIF interview she would hate if somebody were to do that. She wants the version to be seen properly, and I'd like to imagine that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. How is, in your opinion, how has technology changed what's possible in restoration compared to 2 decades ago?
Oh, well, for one, you've got all these source separation, so you can separate music and sound effects and all that, and you've got all these upscaling techniques and again, steering clear of AI, because that's not our thing. But you've got all this. You've got brilliant programs like DaVinci Resolve, which Carty is editing this in. Technology has come a scary long way. Like I said, these CDs that we pulled all the audio off, and the DAT tapes and the DA88 tapes. Like, this is like hugely outmoded technology that the people haven't used in years. And those file systems on the CD, I had to not only get that to read, but then import that as raw data, so it would then get and guess the sample rate until we got it right. So a lot of it is, if this stuff had been made a few years ago, we wouldn't have that problem. But because we're dealing with stuff, we brought it into the new century, and I think that combined with these brilliant programs and methods, that's kind of made things a lot easier.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's really great. In terms of just you as a historian, archivist for children's media, how has this project challenged you in ways you didn't expect going into it?
That's a great question, because again, like I said, it completely changed how I viewed, there was a time, like, it wasn't recent times, but there was a time where I thought, wow, the final cut, we're lucky we got that. And that, to an extent, is still true, because they, lucky we got anything at all the way things were going. But once we started editing and looking through stuff, I was like, wow, the story's really coming through here. Like, and I felt bad that I'd almost given into that propaganda that, Brit was crazy and these people made her look crazy. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm glad I was wrong. That's one thing I was glad to be wrong about. So I guess I'd say that. Like, it's the entire thing is like nothing's ever been done like this before. Like, you've got the Mario movie restoration, which is very different because that's like a work print they've restored, whereas this is like a full-on, all the elements together, all the ADR, like trying to finish the movie. So it's nothing like this, in my opinion, has ever been done. So,
like you said, you guys are like essentially having like start from scratch and like put all these different cuts, because like Carty said, there's like 3 different cuts of the film. Well, really not 3, but like there's multiple cuts. It's how do we blend all of that in together to make it make sense and for it to still work as a film as a whole. So that makes sense. That's a good way of viewing it. So, in terms of audience, how do you think improved audio changes the way audiences will emotionally connect with the story?
Well, for one, if you've got all the voices the way Brit intended them to be and the people she cast, it's I think the director's original vision will make a difference, and hitting more on that music, music with those emotional notes and putting them in the right spots and editing it just the right way. I think all of that will be noticed. I think it's a lot of hard work, but I think people will see that, and I think that the fans will love it.
So, how do you personally hope viewers will perceive the film differently, even if they've seen it before?
I'm hoping that this opens their mind a little bit, especially people that aren't already fans, or maybe even people that hate the film or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it shows them that regardless, of their distaste for it, that it is possible to fix that movie. I don't fully expect people to change their opinions. However, I'd like them to be more open-minded. That's what I'd like to see.
Sure. Absolutely. Gives them a new perspective. This is not just Thomas the Silly Tank Engine movie. This is Thomas's cinematic journey. It's magical journey that we should have seen all these years ago. This is kind of a forward-looking, unique close I wanted to bring up. But how do you think projects like this will influence how studios treat unreleased or alternate versions of films in the future?
Well, again, I'd like to see that this can make sort of like make some waves in the industry, and people see this and go, well, shit, maybe there's an interest in, all this old stuff, and hopefully it does. That's what I'd like to see. Ideally, I want it to create a ripple effect where they realise, wow, there's money in this, or there's, viewers and stuff that would like this,
What kind of restoration projects would you want to personally take on after this experience is over?
Well, I run a record company which specialises in '90s children's television soundtracks, and I've got that also extends to DVDs and home media releases and stuff. So that I just want to keep doing that. I'm probably going to keep doing that for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I know you did release. It was you or somebody else. I know you commented on it. An old children's stop motion show, and it was Colin Fox, the guy who's voicing Henry, in this cut, and hearing what he sounds like. While I did actually like Henry's final voice in the final, it is still cool to see what he would have sounded like in this cut. Really, Toby, James, Henry, and Gordon, and Thomas, even though it was still Eddie Glenn, those were really only the 5. Oh, sorry, Neil Crone. Yeah, those were the only 6 voices I was cool with and didn't have problems with. No disrespect towards Neil Crone or Kevin Frank for Splodge, but I couldn't really tell them apart, and they just sounded a little bit annoying at times. That's my hot take. So I'm excited to see Michael Angelis's take on Splodge, how it differs, and just hearing Adrian Egan and Eddie Glenn as James and Percy. That's really what I'm looking forward to the most. So, how do you want your contribution to this project to be remembered?
The crazy guy who didn't want the audio to be from us. The crazy guy in Australia who didn't want this audio all the way in Canada to be thrown in the bin and rescued within 7 days. That's what I wanted to be remembered. Yeah.
Well, rest assured, I don't think anyone's gonna think you're crazy. If anything, they'll think you're the hero, the protagonist, the superhero who managed to find lost media, Thomas's first and last theatrical movie, and is now restoring it to its highest degree. And I think Britt Allcroft and Michael Angelis and all the people who are involved that are no longer with us now would really appreciate that, just from going from a fan's perspective to being the executive of 3, the executive to be able to handle all of this and say, hey, if these people were still here, we can give them the moment and spotlight. How would they want us to conduct it? And how can we give it back to them while still maintaining true to the original vision, but without making it feel like it's, all the stuff that's had to deal with Thomas recently. How can we separate it from that? How can we give this to adult fans who probably have their own kids now from seeing this original movie back in 2000? How do you bring model Thomas back to the way it was supposed to be? And putting all of these elements back. I think it's a wonderful thing. And it really just teaches you all, like I said in Carty's interview, it's never too late to start something new. You find a new project, and whether you view yourself as crazy or not, it's going to set you apart from other people, because it makes you realize, hey, I found this. I'm the only one in the world who's going to see this publicly, but I wanted to release it to everyone else because I know this will make other people happy. And this is what the late Britt Allcroft, all these people that were involved in it but won't get to see it, this is what they would have wanted. This is what she would have wanted. And like I said, like I told Carty and putting for Mara Wilson, Britt would have loved this journey, and she would love it that you're with us now. Thank you, Mr. Marshall, for doing that. Thank you all for watching and listening, and go see this director's cut. Go take it in. This will give you a brand new experience compared to what you had before. Bring your trains. That's what I'm going to do when I see this film. I'm going to bring all my childhood toys and just bring them in with this movie, because it'll be like little me experiencing it for the first time. Just take it all in, whether it's in New York, Canada, or the Isle of Man in the UK. But thank you, Mr. Marshall, for doing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching.
And every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh,